Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all the action in Super League basketball this week. We need to be quick, Dave. I need to go watch my football team get absolutely battered again, as we do every
Well,
other week. And
normally I'd be disappointed if that happened again.
indeed, and unfortunately, it's not just the basketball that we're going to have to talk about this week. We're going to have to lean back into the shenanigans around the license, and what I'm going to say now, Dave. I'm going to let you be the lawyer and give the facts and the detail and the preciseness. I'm just going to be a fan for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to be a completely myopic fan. And I should warn the audience, I'm a second generation Dubliner. And my mother used to say to me a quote that I think was James Joyce, which is Dubliners don't swear. It's just a mere orchestration of words. So I'm going to orchestrate some words now. And if you don't like that, it might be a good time to press pause. Because what we've seen with this license, Dave, I think is just a massive fuck you to all the fans out there. If you're a Newcastle fan who's been watching since the EPAB days, they don't care about you. The governing body doesn't care about you. If you're a Leicester fan who knows who Lonnie Leggett or Marty Head is, they don't care about you. If you're a Sheffield fan who's got a picture from when you were 10 years old stood next to Roger Huggins, you can do one as well. If you're the Holgate family who watched Hemel lose 30 games in a row and yet still followed that team to Watford, to Milton Keynes, to London, even to Crystal Palace they went, and I could still hear Pat screaming, "Lions!" at the Mattioli Arena on Friday night when I watched that game back. They don't care about you either. They want new teams, new cities, Edinburgh, Coventry, Leeds, Liverpool, wherever they want to go. They want new fans. They're not interested in you. They don't even care about next season. They've not even said anything. They're talking about 2 years down the line. And I know the SLB is not flawless. You and I have said that, and we've taken our pick, our pot shots at them as well. But the governing body has disengaged with the very people who pay the money in this country to engage in this sport. They are the main stakeholders. Where was their consultation? There was no consultation with any fans anywhere. And you've got the ridiculousness of there will be fans in Bristol who will go to the Wise more times this month than most of the board combined have been to top flight games at all. The chair did not even turn up to a Great Britain game in Newcastle earlier this year because he was scared of the fans' reaction. But if what you're doing is good for the sport, defend it. If you are right, defend it. This week, we saw on Twitter Sam at Hoopsfix just saying, "This is so sad," or something to that effect. It might be the time to blow it all up. You have lost me, and you have lost Sam. I've been watching basketball in this country since before I could say the word basketball. Sam has given his whole adult life, working life, to the sport in this country. You've lost us. And me and Sam, we may bitch behind closed doors every now and then, and sometimes to each other, but generally we advocate. He's Mr. Back British Basketball all those years ago. I was the one with the petition to reconstitute UK sport when they took your funding away. And yes, I think British basketball has been very poorly run by the national governing body since its inception in 2006, and we pointed out the failings along the way, but we still backed it all the way because we want the success of the sport to be at the very top level. So if you are losing people like me and people like Sam, you are doing something seriously wrong. You have alienated basically everybody in the sport other than you. And that doesn't make any sense. It's not good. You might not like the clubs. You might think that some of the people in the clubs are idiots. Maybe you're right. I don't know. But you cannot disengage from all of the fans, the people who pay their money and turn up. Somebody came up to me yesterday in Cheshire and said, "Thank you very much for what you said whenever it was, 6 weeks ago." You would not believe the amount of people that have come up to me at games over the last 6 weeks or so. "Thank you for what you said. You were speaking for us. Why am I speaking for fans? Why? Why is the governing body not speaking for the fans? Why are they not going and talking to the people who I am talking to, who are saying, we don't want this? They're all saying the same thing, and you've set fire to everything for a few bucks, a few dollars. You're going to burn everything down just for a few quid. And fact check, the league signed a £22 million deal 25 years ago, so it isn't even the biggest investment, but you wouldn't know that because you don't know any of the history that you are throwing out. You haven't spoken to people. You haven't asked them what they think. You've just gone ahead. And I get, look, the world of sport is all about money. Why is the NBA coming to Europe? Money has nothing to do with developing basketball in Europe. That's already being done. This is about them seeing, oh, we can get a piece of that pie. So I get the European Super League, all about money. Premier League has the pretense of being about fans, but it's really all about money. I get it isn't the happy old days where amateurs turned up and played and it was the best of ours against the best of yours. I get that's all gone, but we cannot forget that the only reason sport exists is because people will go and pay money to watch it. They came out of the pits on a Saturday lunchtime and they spent their tuppence to go watch the rugby league or to go watch the football, and they've been doing it ever since. And it is them that have just been ignored in this whole process, thrown out to the side like a complete irrelevance, because we're just going to go drop fantasy teams in new cities and it'll all just magically appear, while alienating everybody who's been engaged to this point. And the one thing I cannot understand is why nobody on that board has resigned. I cannot believe out of 12 people, or however many people there are on that board, that not one of them have gone, you know what, maybe setting fire to everything, maybe not talking to the fans, maybe all of this reaction, maybe we're not quite doing the right thing. And I'm going to have some backbone and I'm going to stand up and I'm going to do the only thing that I have in my power to do, which is to resign. Because in my view, they should all go, because this doesn't make any sense. You are burning everything down just for a few dollars. And if you go out there and you ask the people, you have the braveness to stand in front of people with a decision that you've made, like a Republican at a town hall right now, and you will get the feedback from them as to whether they disagree or whether they agree. And it will be a very, very small number, if any, who agree with you. So you must ask yourself, what are we doing if everybody who turns up on a Friday night, a Saturday night, and a Sunday afternoon to watch this sport and puts money into this sport, the real people putting real money into this sport, if they are all saying no, maybe we've gone down the wrong path. Maybe we sold our soul for a few dollars more, and it's not acceptable, and it's time to call it out, and I've had enough. It's all bullshit and it all needs to go. And to quote, is it the Arsenal fan? It's time to go. We've had enough. We're done.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm really
sorry.
mad.
Don't
I'm
be
really
sorry.
mad.
Don't be sorry, because what you said is very powerful. We talked, what, 5, 6 weeks ago, and at that point, Grant's position was untenable. I said that. I said that on here. And if the chairman's position is untenable, then the board has to make decisions. Now, the reality is, since that point 6 weeks ago, their heels have dug in even further. Their lack of consultation has become ever more obvious. The dirty tricks have picked up because there's a lot of stuff going on in the background.
That's the other thing, is you can't say we're not tit for tat while you're titting to the tat, by the way.
Absolutely.
Just as a matter of fact.
Yeah, absolutely. There are the attempts to sever clubs away from each other have been made in not only straightforward ways, but also in clandestine ways. The desperation of somebody who has backed himself into an enormous corner and is now trying to find a way of getting out without putting his foot all over the paint, and has decided there's no way out. I'm going to have to try and bludgeon through the wall instead. it all leads to the inescapable conclusion that they are not fit for purpose. As you say, the concept of let's just throw out some names of some cities where we can have some teams. What utter balderdash. That's a British word.
Mm,
Tripe, garbage, shite, Geordie
mm,
word.
mm,
Absolute nonsense. We've tried. You can't put, but British basketball is based around two things, venues and people. You have to have the venue, you have to have the people. That's it. If you don't have the right person, doesn't even if you've got the venue, doesn't work. London City Royals, Birmingham
mm,
Panthers, all of that stuff. We all know that. We appear to be in a situation where the only people um, who are operating on kind of a Pol Pot year zero mentality, i.e., nothing's ever happened before, so we can just make it up from the start, are the people who are meant to know the most about it.
mm,
And the problem is when you fill a board a governmental board with people who have basically no interest in the professional game, no interest in the modern professional game, with time served people, people who put time into grassroots, then maybe a name from the past who's always thinking, well, it's not as good as it was before, right? And then you have your time served kind of politicians, and then because we've got such a ridiculous 12-person board, it's so unwieldy, we've got to have a couple of people from Scotland and a couple of people from Wales just to make sure everybody feels included, all that nonsense. And then you put it in the hands of somebody who's basically decided that he's an arsonist. You give him the matches, and no one in the board wants to take the matches away from him.
mm.
That's where we're at. And yeah, okay, you said I'll be the lawyer, do the facts stuff, but that's about right. Now, the fact in relation to the facts stuff, what's going on is we have, in one hand, we're going to, and you talked about for a few dollars more. Look, there's no guarantee it's a few dollars more. Let's be blunt,
Mm,
right? There is no guarantee it's a few dollars more. No guarantee that Glickman is ever going to come up with anything. It would be fair to say that some of the people who are mentioned around him are of dubious repute. You can just Google does you that. You then have the fact that this is somebody who was basically booted from the Euro League within 6 months of getting there. And we've previously talked about that,
mm.
about how he was there just long enough for them to realise that it wasn't a good idea for him to be there. So you throw in an unlawful process, you throw in a horrendous tender, you throw in an absolute lack of consultation, which they still seem to think was a negotiation when it wasn't. It was a tender. Then you throw in the threats. Then you throw in the as you put it so concisely, the lack of consultation with the fans, and the lack of any real care as to how these businesses are going to continue to run. Because they got to sell season tickets for next year. What's happening next year? Oh well, we're going to speak. We're going to take these clubs away from a license. We're going to give it to somebody else who may or may not want them. But then we're going to sit down and we're going to speak with them for the next about what's going to happen for next year. Well, you would tell them where to go, wouldn't you?
Mm,
And they have.
mm.
Now, fortunately, there does appear to be a sliver of hope in the fact that it appears that licensing is not recognition.
No.
And there's a FIBA statute which allows for recognition without license.
Mm,
So all effectively the governing body has to do is to provide um, the league with recognition, which will allow it to continue under FIBA statutes, which is it just goes to show what a ridiculous kind of world this is. We're talking about
mm.
people bouncing the ball and putting it into a hoop,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there will be a league next year, but the actions of the people in charge at this point are spineless. As you say, the failing to come to Newcastle was spineless. The clueless, and I get clueless from the interview with Sam. His interview with Sam was awful. It's very bad news when you're being interviewed by somebody who knows more about it than you do,
Mm,
and you demonstrate that. And as I say, unfortunately, since that point, they have engaged in every single attempt they can to undermine what we currently have,
mm,
and acted in less than good faith.
mm.
And now we've got a situation where, as you say, the release that came out on Tuesday it was just pathetic. It really was. And I'm glad that the response came back very quickly, saying we don't need you.
Mm.
You know, you keep playing your silly games. You know, your only job as a governing body federation, right, is to get basketball on the court
Mm.
and move the sport forwards. You know, you watch the Court of Gold on Netflix and you look at the facilities that the French have got in SEP and all the athletes coming together at the age of
Yeah,
50
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah,
develop a program. You do the same, you look at the same in Serbia, you look
yeah.
at the requirements that are put in place to develop, to get put the ball bouncing, to get bodies involved, to build the economy of the sport. And what they are trying to do out of hubris and ego is to tear it down. And
Mm.
it's not and it's not about, oh, we need money to put teams on the floor. You've got a GB program, right? You can't even in that team, you've run one game in London in the past 4 years.
Mm.
Maybe one, maybe two, maybe past 3 years. Every game you've had to basically put your cap out and say, please, can Newcastle, can you hold it?
Mm.
Right? So instead of getting 7,000 people, you're getting 2,500 people, right? You've not got any national team sponsor. Your coverage is awful, right? There are so many things that are controllable that they haven't done. And what they've seen is the license as a gold mine to
Mm.
basically tax the rest of the sport
Yeah,
in order to support their travel, in order to support their stuff. And incidentally, in doing so, they undermine both, not they undermine their own head coach,
yeah,
their own assistant coach, and
yeah,
their own basketball GM.
yeah.
It is as backwards as you could ever imagine. I still think it will resolve, and I certainly don't want to reduce the impact of what you said, because I think you said it better than I could have. Um, but the whole thing is unacceptable, inexcusable, and the government, who I know were kind of marking. I know they've got a line to
Dancing around it.
dancing around the line. Well, technically, FIBA, I'm sure FIBA and FIFA prohibit government interference in sport, so they have to be a
Mm.
little bit careful. But ultimately, whatever is going on in the back channels needs to be accelerated.
Yeah.
And ultimately, we need to have got to the point whereby either enough of a critical mass on that board grows some bollocks and resigns,
Mm.
right? Or somebody tells them where they've got to go,
Yeah, I
and we
agree.
start all over again. And just
And look,
finally,
look,
I'm sorry.
I get, but people will be able to throw at me, oh, I'm biased because my family and my history and my surname and all of that, and they'll throw you're biased because of your history
Yeah,
with one of the clubs. We're not. This has nothing to do with any of that. This has to do with two people who've spent a combined 80, 90 years watching basketball in this country and observing the sort of movements around it, the politics around it, without really you've tried to engage, obviously, Dave. I obviously have steered clear of it completely, and just going, this doesn't make any sense. What are we doing? And it has nothing to do with any of the rest of it. And I know it's an easy stick to beat, particularly me with, but I'm doing this because, well, partly because somebody came up to me yesterday and said thank you. That's
mm,
why. Somebody came up to me at a game yesterday and said thank you for saying that. And I was sitting there thinking, why is he thanking me? Why can he not have that direct connection? Where is the voice of the normal people who turn up every week? Because they are the ones that have kept it alive, quite literally, in
yeah,
some cases, kept
exactly.
it alive. Leicester was kept alive however many years ago when I was in a room at the Tigers and a bunch of fans turned up and they raised about £25,000 or something, literally there in the thing to keep it going. Guildford, Surrey 89ers, as they are now, was born out of fans who lost their club and they built it back up themselves. There are fans out there who have quite literally kept basketball going in this country, and we are just saying, we're not bothered about you. Don't care.
Might have a league next year, might not. Just
Yeah,
get on, go and do
yeah.
something else. And when those people do something else, it won't come back.
They won't come back.
They won't come
They
back.
won't come back.
Which is why it's so short-sighted. But ultimately, as I say, it comes down and the time serve people. And of course, you get all the previous failures crawling out the woodwork. Well, you get
The one person I've seen who said this is a good idea on Twitter is Ron Scott.
well, I think John Amici thinks it's a good
Oh
idea as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
But
probably.
John Amici thinks anything which can raise his profile is a good idea. I'm afraid. And not, these are people who don't go to games.
Mm,
They don't run clubs. Have an
yeah,
opinion on everything, but an involvement in nothing.
yeah, yeah.
The reality is totally divorced and looking for, a little bit of a column inch or two and a little bit of political capital that they can get out of it.
Mm,
That's the reality. Um, there's no due diligence being done. There's no proper process being done. The fact that they've got a letter before action suing them for 20 million should be enough for somebody on that board to grow a pair of kahunas and speak to a couple of other people on that board and go and present Mr. Grant with his fait accompli.
mm,
Here's the platter. Please put your head on it.
mm.
And then maybe with a bit of trust, maybe they can regenerate some trust
Yeah,
between the people he's meant to be serving and
yeah,
him. The people he's meant to
yeah,
be serving is the basketball community of this country, and the
mm,
basketball community of this country is substantially based around the professional clubs and the
mm,
semi-professional clubs, but substantially um, in relation to the kind of the amount of people involved.
mm.
It is going to
And
be
the
it,
income that's
and the income
generated
it
from.
generates
Mm,
is based around the clubs, and they don't
mm,
want any part of it. And so, yeah, plague on his house.
mm. Right. I've done that. Didn't
Yeah,
I don't I take no pleasure from it. I take no pleasure at all from it. Um, what I take pleasure from is watching games. So
yeah.
let's get on to that.
I know.
Let's see if we can flip the switch. Um, we have to go back to Tuesday. This is we said Tuesday night is bit of a stretch for us, particularly when we're doing it on a Monday. Bristol Flies 78, London Lions 88. No Soko for the Lions. Lions went 1 for 7 from the free throw line to start the game. Bristol scored 13 unanswered points around the first quarter break and led 25-16. It's not the first time they've been up against London.
Yeah, they were up and London looked like a team that was a bit rusty. Certainly, as you see, they missed foul shots. They were missing Soko, who's a big part for them, and Adebayo, also a big part for them. And as you say, they just never got it going. Bristol's offense is very much based around kind of making shots. They don't generate fantastic looks, but um, when they do make shots, it kind of stops the opposition running on them. Um, London's without Soko and without Adebayo. And I think did I get in foul trouble in this game?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, yeah.
The other game, yeah, did I got in foul trouble in this game as well? So they're a bit thin.
Mm,
They are a bit thin ultimately. Goodwin, who's 19, is playing quite substantial minutes for them. And we've talked before, that means he's got a target on him.
mm.
Because at this part
Because
of the
he's
season,
19. Oh,
he's 19, yeah.
yeah.
And they're very, very ride dependent.
Mm,
So it was a bit of a defensive kind of, I would
yeah.
defensive battle. Just I thought teams missed a lot of shots.
Yeah, I did as well. They led 36-25, Bristol off a couple of Landolfi threes, actually.
That's
And
right,
then
yeah.
Bristol with a turnover and a run back on the second quarter buzzer. Those ones drive me mad. I know they
Yeah,
drive you mad as well.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And what could have been like 6-7 points is two, and you feel like all of the good work that they'd done over that half, and they only led by two. And then it was a pretty close game right down to the end, really.
I thought so. I didn't think Bristol were going to win.
Mm,
I felt that Aaron again. I felt Aaron Wright gives you a lot of confidence if he's on your
mm,
team,
mm,
and it just is kind of the ability to make plays. Um, I still don't quite know who the alpha is on Bristol's team. I think it kind of changes, and who's going to have the ball and who's going to make the right play when it matters down the stretch. And am I right? Did they have a little bit of a drought towards the end?
Yeah. So
Possibly.
so we'll just go through the last couple of minutes. So it was
Mm.
76-77 with 3 minutes to play, and then a Peterson three, Hadzi Begovic dunk. That was actually the biggest lead of the game. 1:59 to go at 76-82, and then they scored 11. They scored 11 points in a row,
Yeah, and
carried
the
that
thing is,
run on,
when you're
and it was
getting that,
11 in a row.
when having that drought, you don't quite know where Bristol are going. That
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
Where they're getting their points from, who's in the game. You know, they've had so many games, they've had changed the personnel. You know, it's almost like they're looking for somebody to kind of grab hold of them, and it's tough against a team like London.
yeah,
Peterson was exceptional in this game.
yeah. He was great.
He really was. I mean, he was the kind of guy. You know, the thing with Peterson's game is that it isn't just his offense and his defense. He does every. You know, he can switch on post ups. He can switch in screens and guard the post. He comes back, he rebounds. He gets steals without gambling too much. He when he's knocking down his shot, which is probably the one knock on him, he becomes a you know he's got good size as well, six
Mm,
three. So when he's knocking down his shot, he's exactly the point guard that Bozic would want.
mm,
You
mm.
know, thought he really led them in this game.
Yeah, he was certainly knocking his shots down in this one. So Johnson 18, Robinson 13, McCormack 10. Peterson was 8 for 11 from the floor, 20 points and 8 assists. Had to Begovic 18 points and 11 rebounds and 6 assists, actually, and Rye had 13. Wednesday night, Sheffield Sharks 74, Caledonia Gladiators 81. No Whelan as well. He was out with a foot injury. Onwes and Ventura were back. An inauspicious start to this game. Sheffield made a three on the first play. I think it was Jeffries on the first play. And then there was almost nothing happening for the next sort of 3 or 4 minutes at either end of the floor.
No, yeah, Sheffield obviously coming off a win on Sunday, and it's not the first team Caledonia have kind of crept up on. You
Mm,
know, you look at the standings and you look at the team, and they're a bit different. And then you look at Pat Whelan being sat down, and you think, oh, hang on, you know, this is going to be all right. Um, but this is a real test for my kind of lose a player, it makes you better.
mm.
Beat one player, you know. And you know
It
what we
shouldn't be lose Pat Whelan and it makes you better, though,
it
should it?
shouldn't be, but it depends on roster construction, right?
Mm,
And I'm not saying it'll make them better in the long term. Of course it won't.
mm,
Over a short period of time. Now, what the problems that we've been talking about with Caledonia over the past couple of weeks have been that they've got all these big guys, all these kind of big guys stacked up on the
mm,
bench. You know, if you think of them, take away Ramsey and Ventura, the next biggest guy, the next smallest guy is about 6'7",
mm,
right? And if you've got those two guards playing quite a lot of minutes, there's too many of those other guys to get into any type of rhythm.
mm,
Well, now you have to change a little bit because with Whelan playing and Ramsey playing, you're two really solid ball handlers, so you're running a lot of screen and roll. Okay. Whelan not playing, and suddenly you're starting basically Malcolm and Spielman as the two and the three, right? That means that there's mismatches on size. So
mm,
so instead of running your nice stuff and going in and going screen roll, rotating the ball to the other side, you can just duck in and post up. You can throw the ball inside. You play a bit of old school stuff.
mm,
And those guys are getting their touches now because they know they're going to be playing more minutes.
mm,
So it becomes a more physical game. I mean, the most fascinating stat in this game was that Fag Bentley played 30 minutes. He didn't shoot the ball,
mm,
right? Because they're not running an equal opportunity kind of motion offense whereby the ball gets to the open guy because they haven't got the bodies to do that. They haven't got the perimeter bodies to do that. What they're running is basically get the ball to somebody who wants to put
That's
it in
an
the basket.
advantage. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
an advantage,
Mm,
you know, and that isn't Fag Bentley.
mm,
And he's so well, we played 30 minutes and he was effective what he was doing defensively. So it changes the dynamic of the team, um, but it doesn't which then can impact the way that they play. And I
mm.
think they caught Sheffield cold. I think Sheffield were flat.
Yeah.
Um, I also think Sheffield are still figuring out their rotation is so tough. They got too many good players.
Mm.
The other stat in this game that really hit me was that McGill and Nixon shot 40 of their 70 shots.
Yeah, yeah, I picked up that as well.
You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that's an incredible amount because that means no
yeah,
one basically touching the ball.
mm,
Given that there'll be passes from those two, and given that there's so many other players on that team who can shoot
yeah,
the
yeah,
can
yeah,
score the
yeah,
ball,
yeah.
They're not going to get into a rhythm if they're only getting 2 or 3 looks each. And so I think Jeffries may have been out, I can't remember. Jeffries certainly didn't start the second game. I'm not sure if he started the first game
He
this week.
started this one because he was the one I'm sure who hit the first three, and then
So
nothing
he started
happened
the
for.
first
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
But then this game, that's right. Reece only played 5 minutes.
Yeah, Reese played 5 minutes. Yeah, yeah.
So they're really struggling with that. So in relation to the game, I just thought Caledonia did everything they were meant to do, and Ramsey obviously is on a comeback game.
Yeah, revenge tour.
Revenge tour. Yeah.
The Spielman, you mentioned him, 7 points in a 13-2 run, had them 28-39 ahead. Sheffield tried to get back in it, but Spielman, that sun is pretty bright on you, by the way.
Sorry, it's
Spielman
not.
and Ramsey,
Hang on,
it's
wait.
obviously shining on the tune today.
Wait 1 second. Hang on. We'll sort it
Yeah.
out.
Spielman and Ramsey had the Gladiators out to a 50-66 lead with 11 minutes to play. And then fourth quarter, I don't know if you can still hear me, Dave, while you're over there sorting out your windows.
Yeah.
I thought Caledonia were playing the clock rather than the game in the fourth quarter, and they were getting to shot clock violations and poor shots at the end of shot clocks, and Sheffield was slowly reeling them in.
Yeah, the Geordie sun is bright. I do apologise, people, but it'd be better off listening to this and watching it anyway.
Mm.
I'm nothing to look at. Yeah, but I also thought that was again a little bit down to the lack of ball handling. You get tired eventually.
Mm.
Eventually, defense picks up the pressure on the perimeter, picks up. It's hard to get the ball where you want. Sheffield play with a bit of desperation. They play faster. It was interesting that Atiba actually went to his defensive lineup with Routinho and Anderson in the game to kind of bring them back in the game, but that didn't quite give them enough offense at the end.
Mm.
And yeah, Groves had to come back in. So they're constantly battling themselves, Sheffield, in relation to which guys they need to have on the court. They have an embarrassment of riches. It's not an easy job.
Mm.
And
Uh,
so on. I think Ramsey made a ridiculous three at one point as well.
yeah,
They really
yeah,
did. I mean, they really kind of they were struggling to get good shots, but they just made enough.
enough, yeah. So an 18-5 spell had it to 68-71. Nixon then got it down to 72-73 with 148 to go. It was at that point I thought, oh, Sheffield are going to win here and Caledonia are going to kick themselves. But 136 to go. A gutsy three from Spielman. That was
Yeah,
an I'm not losing this game shot to make it
absolutely.
72-76.
That was a chuck shot.
Yeah,
That was a chuck shot. I like that shot. I did. Yeah, it was like we've had enough of losing close games.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree with that. Yeah, and set the tone. Yeah.
127 to go. Clay to the rim, and well, a foul called. I wasn't 100% sure how much contact that was. It was an unusual call because it was made for the referee on the near side, and you would have thought the other two would have had a better
Oh, this was
line
on the
into it.
drive.
Yeah,
Yeah. Canadian X-ray vision. Yeah.
yeah,
I wasn't allowed to talk about their nationality, the refs on Friday night, but
yeah.
yeah, Canadian X-ray vision. Yeah, I think it may well have been. It was one of those kind of on the drive, shoulder in. Does he ride him or not? But it really wasn't a call that ref should have made.
Mm.
Absolutely not.
He goes 0 for 2, so maybe ball don't lie. Who knows? Ramsey misses a three. Routinho to the rim, but a great recovery block from Barnes with a minute to go. And then you mentioned the three earlier. Ramsey made a heck of a fadeaway shot with 38 seconds to go, which basically won the game at 72-78.
Yeah, put the game away.
Yeah.
Did Sheffield get no? That was the next game. That was the Leicester games. Yeah, great win for Caledonia. I mean, they have a bunch of pros there. That's what they do have. Anyone who's lasted that season is a professional, given the season they've had. And they've added, in Spielman and Ramsey, they've added a couple of kind of not grizzled, but certainly experienced vets who can help them. They're getting some decent minutes out of Ali Hodzic as well, doing what he does. That really kind of helped them to kind of cement themselves, if it makes sense. And it was a great win. And it just goes to show, we talked about, London having those 4 wins, 18-14.
Yeah.
Sheffield are it took them Sheffield and Leicester 3 losses to get there,
Yeah. Yeah.
So wins do matter.
Yeah.
Do matter.
Nixon, 21 points, 21 shots. McGill, 20 points, 19 shots. Clay, 16 points. They shot 37% from the floor.
I think that was kind of a factor of them chasing the game, because they were behind. And so you run your guys a bit longer, you run your main guys a bit longer, then you lose a couple of players in the rotation. And you just go and trying to dig yourself back into the game. But yeah, it's not sustainable for them that that Clay
Mm,
those three shoot 80% of their shots.
mm. Uh, Conversely, Spielman 6 of 8 for 20 points. Barnes 7 of 11 for 19 points. Ramsey 16, although he was 6 of 19. But he had 11 assists and he
Allowed.
played
He's allowed because
39 minutes and 10
yeah,
seconds as
and he's
well.
the only creative guy on the team,
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah,
So he's
yeah,
allowed. He's got to shoot those shots.
yeah, yeah. Let's go to Friday night. Manchester Basketball 91, Bristol Flyers 80. No DeBose. Lewis didn't play. Afeje seemed to tweak his ankle in the second quarter, so he only played 4 minutes. Ahore into the starting lineup, although he didn't actually start that well. He got scored on the first defense and then blocked twice on the first
Good job.
offense.
They've got 97 centers, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not really anything. Not really anything in this first quarter. Manchester had a 13-1 run to lead, 33-22 early in the second quarter.
Yeah, I just feel for Bristol at the minute because they
Mm,
are just absolutely they're like, it's like plodging through, Flanders Field in
mm,
wellies,
mm,
games that they have to play and they go up and down the country and it's literally every 3 days and there are no gimme games.
mm.
You're coming up against teams who are almost universally more rested than
Yeah,
you know, and kind of managing bodies. And obviously they're an import down from when Sheffield left as well.
yeah,
You've got to balance that too. And you really, if you see Bristol on the calendar at the moment, you should be taking advantage of that.
yeah, yeah,
Because you've got the energy advantage and the
yeah,
depth advantage to a certain degree. Um, and that has to wear down on players, it's all
yeah,
right.
yeah,
You
yeah,
can't keep giving it every game. You can't keep, you're doing the best you can, but your best, all it takes is a 10% drop. We're here again, another game. If that other team is 10% up on you, then that's 8, 10 points. That's the game.
yeah,
So you do kind of feel for them with the schedule that they've got and the Sheffield induced situation that made it worse.
yeah, yeah,
And Manchester just, Cody John came on. Again, he's clearly facilitated himself as kind of the third guard. I think
mm,
he had 17 shots in 22 minutes, something like
mm,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Put the ball up a lot. And basically if DeBose ain't playing, he's saying I'm gonna get my shots.
yeah, yeah,
But they've got, they got enough. I still think I'm waiting for them to have that little drop, but Mandalay might just be able to rise it out until the end of the
yeah.
season.
So Bristol had 9 in a row to cut it from 14 to 57-52, and then Mitchell and Ko with threes that topped and tailed a 10-3 run to 79-68, and that was basically the game from there.
I mean, they're really talented, Manchester.
Mm, yeah,
And as I say, they haven't had the level of upheaval that Bristol have had in relation to games played, trophy finals, cup semi-finals, European competition, all of that stuff.
mm,
So in theory, yeah, they should be winning games.
mm,
They probably waited a little bit too late to do it.
mm,
Again, Del Pesh played more minutes near the other two centres,
mm,
didn't
yeah,
he? He's the guy, he's maybe the third centre. So, yeah, unfortunately, kind of one of those meh kind of games, I'm afraid.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Manchester did what they're meant to do. Fine.
John, 17 points, although 1 of 9 from three. Mitchell, 17 points as well. He was 3 of 11 for three, so that's 4 of
Mm.
20 for them too. 9 rebounds. Ashton Langford, 16 points and 9 assists. They were 11 of 40 from the 3-point range, so 1 a minute, letting it fly.
Yeah.
Johnson, 26. Robinson, 6 of 8 for 13 points, and Lewis had 9. Let's go to the game you were doing the commentary on, Dave. Newcastle Eagles.
Just watch
Hey,
the game, people.
yeah.
You don't need to hear from me about something I talked about all Friday night, surely.
So Newcastle 81. It'll probably take the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Surrey 89ers 88. Obviously Lawrence not there. Another game with no real runs in that first quarter. Sheffield scored the first 7 points of the second quarter on their way to a 10-point lead.
Really? I mean, that's impressive given that they were playing somebody else.
Who were they playing?
Sorry.
Yeah,
You
what
said
did I say?
Sheffield.
Sheffield. Sorry, I meant
Um,
Surrey. I've written down Surrey.
Dan, I hang on every word, you know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, sorry, anyway, yeah. So sorry scored, yeah.
Sorry,
They
yeah.
got onto a run. Um, yeah, I mean, there was a kind of a before the load men show with Newcastle. I
Mm,
think, they their starting lineup is offensively anemic at the moment. They were 16-0 down at Sheffield, and in this game, Alan Akins didn't score the ball at all. He played without any real force. Waterbit was like one of something. I think we said at half time that the starters had maybe four field goals and
yeah.
Barry made three of them. I mean, you just can't survive on that. On top of that, they played basically scared stiff that Okoro was going to hurt himself a bit more,
Mm,
I think, because he played 14 minutes and he was done. He played 3 minutes
mm.
in the third quarter and he came out, and that was it. So they've clearly had more than one eye on Tuesday. But Surrey were really impressive, and they actually benefited, I think, from um, the fact that Cholovinskas came in, he got into foul trouble because Newcastle went at him. Parkinson didn't really play it that much, and what that meant was, and Hunt got into foul trouble straight away as well. And kind of what that meant was that Lloyd had to play his starters a bit longer. I think that helped them in the game. It might not help them down the line, but it helped them in the game, because they basically played the game with six players,
Mm,
and those guys were in a rhythm. I mean, Mervyn James, you know, I mean, it took Newcastle a little bit too long to adjust to him for my liking, but he was, he is as you said on Sunday, he's a pure scorer,
mm.
and and Jalen Ray as well. And yeah, basically, there are three main guys on the Surrey team that you've got to look at keeping the ball out of the hands of and keeping them away from scoring. And Newcastle didn't manage James and Ray at all,
Mm.
and allowed them to shoot the ball a lot more than they really should have. So yeah, there were a couple of fake comebacks from Newcastle near the end. We talked
So
about.
let's run through it. Newcastle got it down to two. Sorry, seven in a row to finish the second quarter to lead 41-50. Midway through the third, it was a 5 point game, but then Newcastle were just two free throws in the last 4.5 minutes of the third quarter. Surrey went 13-3 to lead 55-71. Always looked like they had enough to me. And then when James made it 73-78, Christian James, with about 2 minutes left,
Yeah.
Surrey went James three, Ray dancing in through the lane for two, and then James three to seal the win.
Yeah, James three was a big thing, the first one, because that wasn't an easy shot, a reasonable defense, and that kind of broke the momentum and broke the game. I mean, there's two overriding thoughts from me. One, I said it in the interview afterwards, Theo was outstanding in this game, did
Mm,
everything that they needed him to do. Um, and secondly, um, without the Coro there, Newcastle body language, their individual body language was not what it needed to be. There was kind of a little bit too much shoulder shrugging from my liking.
mm,
A little bit like when Akora missed those games. They struggle to score the ball. It's like nobody really knows who it is who's meant to be doing it. And you're looking, Pulliam tried a little bit, but he's still quite new to the team, and you just needed a little bit more kind of leadership from somebody. And I'm not sure that that's going to come now, because I think it's a Coral.
mm,
And the Cora's leadership isn't really vocal leadership, but they all gain it's almost tangible. They gain impalpable. You can see they gain confidence from playing around him.
mm.
And when he's not there, it's kind of your turn, my turn. Who is it now? What should we do? Where should we go? And that little bit of uncertainty really kind of I think you can notice it on the court. But overall, I thought, sorry, basically, even though Newcastle played a lot better defense in the second half and they'd obviously been bollocked at half time, I
Mm.
thought, Surrey deserved this game. And they're a team, they've beaten everybody, let's be honest.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
They're a decent team, they're a good team. They've beaten everybody. They just haven't put the games together.
They haven't beaten Bristol. That's the
Sorry,
one
my
team
bad.
they haven't beaten.
Okay.
I got a little message yesterday saying, "Watch out if we beat Bristol in the last game."
Yeah.
So I knew there was one team. I couldn't remember who it was. So night 20, Pulliam 18 points and 9 assists. Three guys on nine, shot 35% from the floor. James 31. Mervyn James,
Yeah.
and 8 rebounds. Ray, 26.6 rebounds and 6 assists. And Teo had nine, but was a plus 17, I think it was in the end,
Yeah.
in a 7 point win. Let's go
And the
to
commentary was great.
the commentary was, yeah, the commentary was great, Dave. Yeah. yeah. Obviously, we
He was
have to
good.
say that. Let's
Yeah,
go to Leicester, whereas Leicester Riders, the commentary was great here as well.
I thought so. Yeah,
It was Niall, not me.
yeah,
Leicester Riders 80, London Lions 71. No Soko still. Brisker only played a couple of minutes. I went back and watched it to see. He didn't look like he was moving right from the start, to be honest. So I think that was he must have done something beforehand, and then they just see how it goes, and it didn't go very well.
he missed the game a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah. Jackson had a second foul early on, so he only played 7.5 minutes in the first half. Although Leicester didn't allow a point for the first 4 minutes, didn't allow a field goal for the first 5 minutes, but despite all of that, they didn't quite get away.
Yeah, Leicester a good matchup for London because Leicester really have the ability to match them with their size. With Thompson 6'8", plays like he's 6'10", Abercrombie 6'9", plays like he's 6'9", you know, and Jackson obviously is a long 6'6", 6'7", and London's advantages this year have been inside
Mm,
primarily. London ran out of bodies in this game. Really, I mean, the bench was basically Kieran Sandy,
mm,
Matthew Goodwin to a little degree, and that's not really going to get it done
mm,
in this type of kind of must-win environment that they
mm,
had. I think Brisker is a major piece for them because they signed Holloway, but he isn't Brisker. Brisker's a guy he kind of warps the defense a little bit. He gives him a little bit more space inside, and he's got a pretty competitive chip as well, you
mm,
know. And when he went out, I thought they had problems. Thompson again, obviously was all over the place in this
mm,
game, all over the boards, all over in the paint defensively. And whilst Leicester didn't shoot it particularly well to start with, um, did we have a little Abercrombie flurry at one point?
Yeah, later on.
Later
First of
on,
all, Wright pushed it out to 10. Then, despite Delay getting his second and third foul in the space of 20 seconds in the middle of the second quarter, London had 7 in a row to make it 23-20 after 17 minutes.
yeah,
Nobody made a three in the game until the last 2 minutes, and then Hunter made one and Rye made one. I think they were 0 of 17 combined
yeah.
before that. The Abercrombie thing you were talking about was a couple of early threes at the start of the third quarter, and then Jackson seemingly making up for lost time, pushed Leicester out to a 46-35 lead in the third quarter.
Yeah, and they just never looked like they could score the ball consistently, London. I
Mm,
mean, and that's because they're not getting the easy stuff from Hadzibegovic because um, Thompson's in there.
mm,
And they don't have the threat of Brisker on the perimeter. So a lot of it comes down to Rye or to some of those other guys knocking down shots, and they didn't knock down shots.
mm,
Peterson isn't a great shooter. I'm yet to be utterly convinced by Holloway's offense. There's times he looks the smoothest player in the world, and there's times he kind of hesitates a little bit. And he's new to the team as well. So, you know, they're at the point where Soko, Adebayo, Brisker, you know, they're not that deep,
no, no.
that they can survive three, yeah. And
And they got a bit shorter in number. Hunter had 6 of 8
yeah,
unanswered points to make
Stuckman
it
is the other guy. I forgot
61
about Stuckman, yeah, because you forgot
45.
about
And
Stuckman,
then
yeah.
last play of the third quarter. Now, I obviously was watching this game. I'd done a EuroLeague game Friday night. So
Yeah,
I watched this game back on Saturday, knowing what was coming. So I had
eyes on
my
it.
radar up for the minutes before this, and you could see there was a bit of niggle with Stuckman before that. There was a little something with Hunter, a little something with Shelton,
Hmm.
and then last play of the third quarter, he sets a big screen on Hunter, and then obviously there's a switch for Leicester. So Hunter is now guarding Stuckman. Stuckman's out on the 3-point line ish,
Yeah,
starts to run into the key,
yeah.
and Hunter just sort of bodies him. And
Shoulder,
and
I would suggest.
Hey,
Shoulder. Look, dropped his shoulder a
shoulder,
little.
yeah, yes, yeah, bodied him in an illegal way. Edjudansky calls a foul immediately, saw it immediately. Stuckman didn't like the response, so he then walked up to Hunter and pushes him.
Yeah,
Those two then come together, and there's a bit of jawing backwards and forwards. And I think it was Dave Griffin on the baseline gave them a double T, and then Hunter walks off out of shot, and the shot stays on Stuckman, who continues to go on and on and on. And eventually, even with his teammates trying to calm him down, he gets a second technical and is ejected from the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things about that, aren't there? Firstly, Hunter and Shelton are Leicester's agent provocateurs. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
probably the fairest thing to say. Shelton probably got a ban coming because of it. We'll see
Mm.
what the ticking clock takes us
Next
to a
season.
game. Well, either next season or the end of the season on games that they don't need to win.
Yeah, yeah,
This is
yeah.
the nonsense of the 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 BBF-led disciplinary system and
Mm,
appeal system.
mm,
The grant, perhaps you could sort that out if you give a toss about the league. But so those two are the one, and what Hunter did was considered. I'll
mm.
put it that way. He
Yeah,
knew
yeah, 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 yeah.
that wasn't a box out. That was a
No, no, no.
that
That
was
was
a
a,
shiver to the chest, right?
yeah.
And Stutman's
That
and
was a you hit me on that screen. I'm going to hit
yeah,
you on
yeah,
this.
I'm gonna get a shot
Yeah,
in.
yeah,
And
yeah,
Stuckman's allowed to kind of give him a bit of pushy as a
yeah,
back. He's gonna get a foul. He's gonna get a technical that. But you're
yeah,
right. He's got to shut up. The only thing I
yeah,
wasn't sure about watching it live was whether or not he got a first tee and then a second tee, or whether they gave him two at the end. But if he got a first tee and then kept going, got a second tee, well, he's
yeah,
got himself to blame.
yeah, yeah. It looked to me like the first one was a double T, and
Yeah.
then he kept going, and then there was another one.
Once you had the warning,
Yeah,
shut up
yeah,
and walk away.
yeah,
But at
yeah.
that point, I think London were frazzled. There were shorter
Mm,
bodies. They weren't scoring the ball. The whole thing just didn't look right. They didn't
mm,
have a vibe about them that game. And I think even Bozic kind of figured that out. If you're
mm,
going to have those games, they've won 12 in a row. You don't just keep winning,
mm.
and particularly when you're down bodies, and your depth has been your strength.
Well, they nearly made a bit of a comeback as well. 4:40 to go. Leicester were up 18. London then scored the next 14 points. Holloway had half of them, capped with he had a three, and
Yeah.
then 1:14 to go. Peterson forced a turnover at midcourt, gets a run back and one, and it's 73-69 with 104 to go, but they're then pressuring up court, trying to force an 8 seconds. They weren't a million miles away from forcing the 8 seconds, but they lost Jackson over the back and he got a layup
I
75
didn't
69.
like that. I didn't like that. I think 4 points a minute you go, you play your defense.
Mm,
And I absolutely understand that we've just got to steal.
mm,
Yeah, so the mentality is let's go and get another one.
yeah, and you've scored 14 points in a row.
Yeah, but the reality is that by getting that steal, the opposition get the chance to figure it out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sort
yeah,
themselves out. So it's very rare that you get two consecutive steals in
mm,
situations like that.
yeah, yeah,
So the calculation you have to make is time and score.
mm,
If you're down seven, yeah, you got to go for a steal. If you're down four and you're going to get the ball back with 40 seconds left,
yeah,
at best, at worst, if you get a rebound, then you keep playing,
mm,
and you try and get a stop and you get down the other end and then you can get into kind of one possession games.
mm,
So I thought they gave that up a little bit early because then that meant they had to make a shot on the next possession. They didn't
yeah.
make the next
They
possession.
did. No, they did. It was the one after that. Hadzabegovic from Holloway, 44.8 seconds to go. Cut it to four again, 75-71. And then Jackson runs the clock down, 24.4. That little jab step three of his, and it's 78-71, and that's the ball game.
And that's the one where they didn't want to get, that's the possession they wanted the possession before.
Yeah,
It makes a three to beat them instead of, it's the Jackson's cheap layup that makes a difference in the
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah,
Take that away, and then and you get it down to two, then the pressure's on a little bit more.
yeah, yeah.
But I think it was a little fake comeback. Yeah, I didn't think they were ever going to win.
Mm,
Yeah, I didn't know the score when I watched it. I didn't think they were ever going to win. I just think it was a little kind of one game too far. I do think they need. Um, I think Soko's a massive, massive miss for them,
mm,
and
mm.
it's obviously Stuckman doing what he did doesn't help.
No. Jackson 17, Wright 15, Hunter 14, Thompson with 7 blocked shots.
Yeah, it was
Um,
all this.
yeah, particularly in the first half. Holloway 19 points and 5 assists. Rye 14. Hadzabegovic 10 points, 15 rebounds. They were 38% from the floor, 27% from free throw line, and 12 of 20. Sorry, 27% from the 3-point line, and 12 of 20 from the free throw line.
It's interesting. I know I'm not always right, hmm. But we previously talked about how kind of Leicester's Achilles heels is kind of the individual shot makers.
Mm,
London really didn't have many of them.
mm,
Think about it, London had the team orientated system, the big guy inside, the running the
mm,
floor, the score off your defense, all of that stuff. That's kind of Leicester's wheelhouse.
Mm,
They didn't have London without Brisker in particular. They really didn't have anybody they could give the ball to and say, you go at him, you pick on Johnson, you pick on
mm,
Abercrombie, you pick on the switch. Didn't have that. That means that the paint is crowded and Thompson is free to roam
mm.
because the ball's coming in. Then. So and they don't have necessarily have the bodies to space the court. So yeah, I think London. I think Leicester's not a bad matchup for London.
Mm,
Probably the best matchup of everybody,
mm.
because of the physicality that they have.
Let's come to Sunday. Full disclosure, I've not fully watched the next two games. I had them on the double screen at Ellesmere Port until about the third quarter, and then we started. And then I only watched the end of this game that we're about to do because Sheffield was a blowout, and I didn't have time to watch it back. So the fourth quarter of a 20-point game.
Yeah.
Caledonia Gladiators 93, Leicester Riders 88, still no Whelan. Hunter and Jackson scoring Abercrombie with a couple of threes. Leicester led by 9 in the first quarter.
Yeah, Abercrombie got a worrying amount of early looks, I thought, in this game. But you have to remember, Caledonia played Leicester there only about a week and a half ago.
Mm.
So teams knew
I
each
think it
other.
was a week ago, wasn't it?
Week
Wasn't it
ago,
last Sunday?
was it something like that? Then you have the fact that Caledonia have a little bit of rest advantage because they won on Wednesday. Leicester
Mm.
played on Saturday, and Leicester played on Friday, and then they would have to travel up. Probably the longest trip that they do. And Caledonia have a kind of a bit of confidence, and everybody's touching the ball.
Mm.
Big thing, and believing in themselves. So they were able to kind of hang around. Thompson had probably one of his less effective games. He got called for a couple of fouls early, which kind of negates him a little bit in his mindset. I couldn't figure out. I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of this game, Caledonia had like 31 foul shots. Now, I was watching it and I was trying to figure out if it was being called a bit tightly or if Leicester were being a little bit atypical in relation to the fouls that they were giving them. I just think Caledonia put a lot of pressure on the rim and gave the refs lots of decisions to make. And Leicester really didn't knock down as many shots as they would have wanted to.
Mm.
And until Hunter got going in the third quarter. But again, it was a little bit like the Sheffield game I was talking about with Caledonia. Leicester, they ran Hunter and Jackson a lot of minutes.
Mm.
I thought just down the stretch that kind of hurt them.
Barnes had 6 in a 10-2 tie to tie the scores early in the second quarter. It was basically close from there. Leicester probably had a little bit more of the lead than Caledonia, but there wasn't really much in it. And it comes down to the plays at the end, really. And
Well, we had some handbags at half time.
oh, did we? I didn't
I
see
didn't
that.
see the handbags at half time. Yeah, one of the one of the strange things about the league is that when I was a coach, it was always my job to go and get the stats sheet.
Okay.
Everybody, you have to stand there and get the stats sheet with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And there was some verbals, and Rob didn't take very kindly to it, and Pablo became his kind of Toreador, his human shield to keep him away.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think, and Darrell Wood was kind of in front of Johnny Bunyan, and Johnny was muttering something lugubriously in Scottish, and Rob's there we go have a look at it, and Rob's having a bit of a point and all that type of.
Okay.
And then unfortunately a fan comes down and has a pop at Rob, and Rob has a bit of a point at the fan. By this time the refs are all gone. No one gives a toss.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of, and that was all because of I think a slightly dubious call with about 1 second to go in the second quarter where Shelton
Okay.
for a foul. But anyway, that was So, but yeah, there's always been. I always felt that I think in the NBA they come and they deliver the stat sheets to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The BBL or this SLB, you have to go and get them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we don't let you stood there for 2 minutes and the printer doesn't work, and it's like,
Yeah.
anyway, moving on.
So let's go through the last few plays. Malcolm corner 3, big shot, 127 to go. Made it 83-77. The other way,
A couple of
Jack's.
those, to be
Yeah,
fair,
he did.
and
Yeah.
he shot it like he shot them like they were going in, and he doesn't always shoot them like that. But with the corner 3, particularly from that far left corner, he's a laser.
Yeah.
It's his Louis Sayers corner, that is.
Yeah, it is. Jackson with a fadeaway, 113 to go, made it a 4-point game. 102 to go. Thompson fouls out. Barnes 2 free throws, 85-79. And then Leicester came down, missed a three, breakaway dunk, and then that basically sealed it.
Firstly, we need to notify Trayvon Barnes' foul shooting is really good. He's a
Yeah,
big,
yeah, yeah.
he goes to 90%.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Well, he was
mean,
shooting, remember early in the season, he was shooting the
27.
technical fouls and they had
Yeah,
Whelan on the court. And he was like, why
yeah,
is he shooting?
he is, I mean, and he's going it the whole season, so you got to give
Mm,
him some, and he was really, really good in this game. Um, and he's playing basically playing the five spot, and they benefit from then Ali Hodge coming in and knocking people around for a while. But the other thing they got in this game was, was good minutes out of Onwas.
mm,
Onwas is a difference maker. He hasn't
mm,
played much this year, and because of the way the lineups were in this game, and with Caledonia being big and Leicester being normal, if I can put it that way, most of the third quarter, Almas was guarding Hunter. Hunter went
mm,
up. They put Almas on the ball. They could do that because of the matchups, because someone's got to guard Hunter. And
mm,
you're saving Ramsey from doing that. Ramsey can guard Wright or Johnson or whatever. And so you put a bigger guy on the ball. And it's a ploy we've seen various teams do. Ward Hibbert does it. Scott Grayson does it. Anderson occasionally does it to really try and discomfort point guards in this
mm,
league. And Almas, I thought, was really good in this game in kind of setting the tone for them. But yeah, Leicester maybe a lot of energy went into the London game, long trip
mm,
up, rest disadvantage, and didn't ultimately they gave up too many foul shots.
mm,
And I would have to watch the game a lot more carefully than I did to decide whether those foul shots were justified.
mm. Barnes, 9 of 11 for 27 points. Ramsey, 21 points and 7 assists, 8 fouls drawn. Malcolm and Spielman both had 12. Hunter,
Plus Ramsey, sorry, just on
yeah,
that, Ramsey is about as quick as anybody in the league.
yeah, he is, yeah, yeah.
Ramsey's probably, he's probably Jordan Johnson territory, in
Mm,
quickness. And that's why you get fouled.
yeah,
Because you've got a step, you get a step. And he's getting the ball in his hands for a lot of the game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Tough guards and get switches. So, it's not chance that he gets fouled.
Hunter 25, Jackson 21 points and 10 assists, Abercrombie 13. Sheffield Sharks 88, Bristol Flyers 69. A 7-0 run and an 11-3 run in the first 8 minutes, and Sheffield were 24-13 up. And to be honest with you, from what I did see of this game, there didn't seem to be much after that.
Well, Damon Robinson showed up. He made some threes,
Yeah,
made four
yeah,
or five threes, and he kept them close at times. But Sheffield obviously been bitten by Caledonia. They weren't
mm.
going to get themselves bitten um, by Bristol at home.
Well, at half time, Sheffield were 19 of 27, which is 70%
Yeah,
from the
but
floor, and Bristol had missed 20 shots at the other end.
slightly different focus,
Mm,
in the beginning of the game. That's what a loss does for you.
mm,
On top of that, they changed again. They started Groves instead of Jeffries. So they got a little bit more kind of scoring there as well. But it's tough. Bristol are just mixing and matching, but they really don't have that much in the way of um, bodies to keep
mm,
doing it.
mm.
And basically, you can see he's being careful with his guys. He's not overextending them. He's played, even Robinson makes a few shots. At the beginning of the third quarter, they get back to five.
Yeah,
Uh, they get back to five, and then he sits down for a minute or two, and it all goes pear shaped.
yeah.
And he
So
brings back,
Louis had five. Robinson with back-to-back threes. 5 point game, middle of the third quarter. McGill then with 8 in a row, and Sheffield moved back to 15 clear with 12 to play, and that really
yeah, and
was that.
Sheffield just got more kind of room for error
Yeah.
because Gill really hadn't made a shot up until then, but he has that kind of spirit ability that we know, and that he hasn't. It was his turn, as it were, and they couldn't really get enough stops, and they played hard. But they're playing. Let's say that it's like they're wading through treacle.
Mm,
That's the impression I get, and it's hard. Um, it's hard to do that when you're slightly undermanned,
yeah.
which I think they are. Certainly
Yeah.
not. Nothing else.
Uh,
You're right. There was not much to it. I mean, the
no.
fourth quarter was a non-event.
Yeah. No, I didn't watch that. McGill, 19 points and 5 assists. Nixon, 5 of 7 shooting for 17 points. Clay and Groves had 11. They were 10 of 19 from 3. Robinson, 4 of 5 3-pointers for 19 points. Johnson had 13, and Louis had 12. And so I feel like we've raced through today.
Well, faster than a bunch of Canadian refs in Newcastle.
Let's go to the final game. Cheshire Phoenix 94, 95. That needs to be sorted out, by the way. I'm just going
Yeah,
to say that. It needs
yeah,
to be
it
sorted out. We
absolutely
can't
does.
keep going like this. Something needs to be sorted out. Cheshire Phoenix 95, Surrey 89ers 104. Surrey came out, shot the ball really well. Good and Ray, James, all hitting threes. They had their highest scoring first quarter of the season at 33-22 lead.
Yeah, well, Gooden hadn't really joined the party. He played well on Friday night, but he hadn't really joined the party on Friday night. But he did. And when he does, I mean, Cheshire probably aren't the most diligent defensive team at times. And, there was a couple of times that Ray got to shoot kind of standalone, kind of playing in the park, playing in the garage,
Mm,
3-point shots, which he just kind of just chucks it up there and it always seems to go in. And then they weren't able to defend without fouling. And Mervyn James, yeah, is getting kind of got that ability to score the ball at three different levels and did it really well. And Cheshire were a bit flat. Of course, Cheshire beat this team twice last weekend.
mm,
What
mm.
scheduling does for we're talking about BBF, but SLB, it's not good.
No,
Yeah, but,
no,
you play a team 4 times a season, and three of those games are within 9 days.
yeah.
They're planned games, they're not rescheduled games.
Mm,
I mean that it to me is easily identifiable, even if they haven't got a fancy computer to do the fixtures because they haven't got the venues. Somebody at the beginning of the season from the clubs needs to be looking at this and saying, "Well, hang on, let's just swap them for them and them for them, and it all
mm,
works."
mm,
I just don't. I just think it's taking the mickey out of the fans a bit, just
mm.
like Leicester playing Caledonia 2 consecutive days. But I think that was a cancelled game, wasn't it? Was it?
Yes, I
It
think
was, yeah, so that was
it was that
rescheduled.
game where what happened? Was it
It
the
was a
weather? It was
storm,
the
it was
weather,
weather. Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
So I'll take that on board, but not the other situation. Not like this where they're playing them at home on consecutive weekends, and then away in the meantime, Friday, Saturday, and then the following Sunday. It's just nuts.
Mm,
And it lends itself to games like this because it lends itself to the team that's won the two games comfortably, taking a half a little back step, and there's some motivation from the other team.
mm,
And on top of that, they have the rhythm of being comfortable for Newcastle. I assume they probably stayed, probably travelled, probably didn't go all the way back to Surrey to go back
mm,
to Cheshire. So maybe a little bit of team togetherness,
mm,
staying over, that type of thing.
maybe.
Which really does. It can make a difference at this time of the season. If you're
Mm,
just enjoying or being around people's company, you don't have to worry about all the stuff that's going on. And they came out and played really well. The question was whether they run out of gas, of course.
yeah.
They did, but
Well, they
Cheshire,
kept going. They kept going in the second quarter because they had 50 points on the board in midway through the second period
yeah,
and 60 with 128 to go to halftime. They led by 21. It was their highest halftime score of the season as well. But start of the third quarter, Timberlake 5 quick points, Holden getting to the rim, and in 2 minutes it's down to 10.
yeah. Well, that's the risk of Cheshire. 20 is
Mm,
12. You know,
mm,
you're up 20, you're actually only up 12, because they can score so quickly. And Surrey aren't a team full of defensive stoppers. They have to play good team collective defense, to kind of survive. And Cheshire have got a lot of individual scorers, and Timberlake is clearly one of them.
mm,
Um, they did make a few adjustments in this game. It was nice eventually to see them turning Holden back to the baseline in the post.
mm.
They wouldn't
Your
let them
pet
get
peeve.
my pet peeve that if your centre comes basically the guy who's got him in the post turns him to the baseline and your centre is there and you make him go over his left shoulder
Mm,
and over his right shoulder, sorry, with his left hand because they got beaten by that for about 12 times last week and eventually they corrected that and that took them a little bit out of their Cheshire a little bit out of their rhythm. um, but Surrey just scored enough, and I think it was that
mm,
run at the beginning of the fourth quarter, wasn't it? Oh, sorry, the middle
yeah,
of the quarter, where you felt that they were about to kind of collapse, and then suddenly it was Ray, boom, James, boom,
yeah,
8 points, and it was game on.
yeah, yeah. Look, it did look like they were going to keep them at bay. And then 5 seconds, they did get it down to five inside the final 90 seconds. And when James fouled out on a needless charge with 30
Yeah, that
seconds to
was. I'm
go,
afraid that was the kind of Jane Delaire in the corner vibes.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah. So what? You
Mervyn
to
James
just run the clock.
played brilliant in both games, but
Yeah,
yeah, to a certain degree, they threw him the ball.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You've
yeah,
got to get the ball to one of your guards.
yeah,
Mervyn James is paid to score the ball.
yeah. So what's he going to do? He's going to go to the rim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you'd hope that as a rookie, in 3 years' time, he won't be doing that.
yeah, yeah,
Rookie, he's paid to score the ball. You've got to try and get the ball into one of your guards. Yeah, it was kind of Jamel Kennedy shooting the ball, kind of
yeah,
done.
yeah.
Just dribbled to the corner, as you said. But even then, they survived it, didn't they?
Yeah, Ray had enough to get them over the line. So that
Yeah,
was
it
that
helps when
was
you've got a guy who's shooting like 99%,
yeah.
So,
It does, it
and
does.
and to be honest, about 87 of those percentage points won't have touched the rim.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
just has an incredible touch.
yeah,
I saw a lot of whinging and whining about refs about this game. I didn't see much wrong with it, to be honest. I watched, I thought it was quite a physical game. But I mean, there was one where someone got hit in the face, and you said they got hit in the face, and
yeah,
Cheshire didn't seem to realise that someone had been hit in the face.
yeah,
I just thought, look, sometimes when the whole teams get, and it's been the same at Newcastle when I've been there, and it happens with me as well. When the home team goes down and things aren't going for you, the
yeah,
crowd a bit frustrated, and people can start looking at referees instead of actually the plays that you need to make you better.
yeah, yeah. I always think Kate's great in that thing. She has those head teacher vibes of just come on, children, let's
Don't
settle
disappoint
down.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, don't
Don't
disappoint
disappoint
me.
me.
That
Yeah,
really, yeah, that type of
yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that actually might be right. I think
yeah,
yeah, that might be right. Um, but yeah, it has the whole shenanigans over everything over the past 3 months. It's amazing that 4.5 years into this, or 3.5 years into this, it's actually really cast a big net over all the things that are important:
yeah,
teams,
yeah,
fans,
yeah,
administrators,
yeah,
finances, referees.
yeah,
We've been able to basically have a storyline for each of them.
yeah,
And some people just kind of need to remember, look, players make mistakes, referees make mistakes, coaches make mistakes, administrators make mistakes. What you've got to be able to do is to determine the ones that are egregious and deliberate
mm,
and motivated by malice or
mm,
um, by a substantial lack of empathy, as against the ones of people who are just coming along and
yeah.
doing what
Let's
they
make a
can,
mistake. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and we've seen bits and pieces of all of that, haven't we?
yeah. We have.
So
Yeah,
the advantage of doing 280 odd games a year is that I'm afraid I'm almost at that point now where I don't get caught up with who made that call about who.
yeah,
Or I don't get full of anger because Rob's pointing his finger at somebody in the crowd because they're pointing their finger at him.
mm,
Or I don't get um, you know, wound up by, a block charge call against Static United being called when it shouldn't have been.
mm,
It's like it's just another play, it's just
mm,
another game. And we all need to care about it and we all need to mean about it. We all need to kind of be aware of the bigger picture.
yeah.
Yeah.
Out with 21, 6 rebounds, Simulate 20, Holden 17, 9 assists, Ray 12 free throws, 8 fouls drawn, 30 points, James 21, 7 rebounds, Gooden 5 of 5 3 for 17 points, 57 field goal, 13 of 19 from three, and 23 of 29 field goals. And I just read that
13 of
really
19 from three.
13 of 19.
Jesus, that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
90% of the season. Jay's
Uh,
made 6 points in 2 games. Yeah.
I just ran through that really quick because I actually wanted to pick up on that because actually I feel like the whole thing again, it's just all of it is sort of thrown a sort of pall over everything. I think
Yeah.
everything that's going on, and as I say, it's not just the BBF, although to me that's the most egregious. It is the fact that we do still have Canadian refs refereeing Sheffield game, and it's just like we need to find a solution to that. And I'm sure that people are doing things and something is happening and whatever, but we don't know. We don't know that. We
Well,
haven't been told that.
what we do know is that there's no other team this year who's had the same ref 4 consecutive games.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
So there's, so
I'm
there's
not
a
saying
bit.
anything against them. Like I'm not saying they're really great or they're really bad or this or that or the other. I'm just saying, as a situation, it's just not tenable. We have to sort this out. We have to
It's not
sort this
tenable,
out.
but we also get to the point whereby there is a competitive element to it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because, as I say, familiarity with referees is important.
Yeah. Although they're two and
Um,
two in those games. So.
well, yeah, it doesn't mean you're going to win,
No, yeah.
really, but
Yeah.
everything needs to be.
But all of it, and again, I go back to all of it. Just sort of throws a, it just puts a bit of a dampener on it to me, and that's the thing. And I go back to the point I made at the beginning. If I feel like that, if Sam feels like that, if people who have, you know,
Yeah,
uh, I don't want to say dedicated their lives, but spent way more time of their lives in and around it just for the sake of it, feel like that.
yeah, and I think there's a little bit about. There's a nice post by one of the guys on Blue Sky today about the playoffs. I think the part of the SLB's playoff system is unfortunately it mitigates against us being too interested. To be
Mm.
honest, you got
Yeah,
a lot
yeah, yeah,
you got a lot of games which really aren't the focus for teams. I mean, you get Caledonia playing hard because they've still got a chance, I suppose.
yeah,
But in reality, 8 out of 9 is
yeah.
well, it's nonsense, and it should be 6. And if it was 6, every game would really matter, and it doesn't. And that's the problem. You have to value your product, and I'm not sure we value the product as much as we
I
could.
kind of get that. I kind of get why that was done again because of all of the issues of last year. But again, that's an excuse, really, isn't it?
There's no
Um,
excuse because people should know. We should know better. If you've got 11 teams in the league, then by all means you have 8 in the playoffs.
mm.
You've got 9 teams in the league. What's going on? You have 7 teams in the league. You have 8 in the playoffs. I mean, it is
Well,
not to
the
be.
only time they've had less than 9, they had 8, and there was 4 teams in the playoffs that year.
Yeah, so well, I'm impressed. That is impressive knowledge. Um, so yeah,
1991, I think it was, or 9, something like that.
all the great old days,
89,
the
90.
1990s, where
Yeah,
that John Amici wants us to go back to. Yeah, no, one thing you learn, Dan, and haven't been around in that you have, the um the rose tinted specs
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah, yeah,
people are immense.
yeah, yeah,
You know, they don't re- they remember 14,009 Arena for
yeah,
Sheffield v Manchester. They don't remember 115 in Northumbria Centre for
yeah,
Sunderland versus Solent.
yeah, yeah,
102 to 55. They don't
yeah.
remember that. And there's far more
It
Sunderland
was
v
a good
Solent.
Solent team, to be fair.
It was, yeah, yeah. It wasn't much of a Sunderland team either. The money had gone. But they don't. But there's a lot more Sunderland v Solent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Leeds
yeah,
v Newcastle,
yeah,
146,
yeah,
60
yeah,
than there was Manchester v Sheffield. And it pains me that we have people who some people who don't want to know the past,
yeah,
and then we have other people who know the past but basically misrepresent it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and these are at this point, and we'll finish all this. These are bad faith actors. These are
Mm,
bad faith individuals who are coming, who are attempting to gaslight people, and we're seeing a lot of it in America at the minute.
mm,
It becomes really apparent,
mm.
that there is this is the part of our sport that we just don't need, and it is so incredibly dispiriting that it comes a year after
Yeah,
we've basically been punched in the face by the same thing.
yeah, it is.
You know, it's like what? It's like I suppose if American can elect Trump twice, then that's fine. But at least half of the Americans who elected him were doing it out of self-interest.
Mm,
And I don't see any self-interest here with
mm,
anybody,
mm.
other than perhaps egotism. So yeah, it's absolutely dispiriting. I'm on you. But we don't want any more phone calls from America, so we'll keep it
Yeah,
positive.
yeah, yeah. We don't. Let's cheer up and what was it? Grit your teeth and get on with it. I think it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah. Do you think
So
that after Bruno sticks a fifth one in tonight?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Only 5.
Ah,
How shit
brilliant.
must you be?
Uh,
Right. We haven't scored a home goal since December. Did I say that?
yeah.
In the league. So that's good investment for me.
It's quite entertaining, given that the manager is one of the best strikers the Premier League sees.
I think he should play. Honestly, it
Yeah,
can't be
yeah,
any worse.
yeah.
Can't be, even at whatever age he is and with dodgy knees. Um, let's go through the table. London Lions are top, 21 and 5. Sheffield in second, 18 and 7. Leicester in third, 17 and 8. And then it's Cheshire in fourth at 12 and 15. Manchester, sorry, and Newcastle both 11 and 14. Surrey 9 and 15. Bristol 8 and 15. And coming up hard on the rails on Grand National weekend. Johnny
Scottish Grand
Bunyan's
National.
Caledonia Gladiators 6 and 20. It's the 20 that's the problem. But, what did you say last week? They've got 8 games left and they need to win at
6 of them.
least. Yeah, yeah. And they've won two.
1, 2, or 2, yeah, 4 more
Yeah,
wins. I suppose they get to 10.
yeah,
And you're relying, I suppose, on Bristol just absolutely flunking out
yeah.
the games they've got to play and not winning anymore. And that's kind of tough. But I mean, if they get 40, ultimately, if they turn around, they end up with
If they end up with 10 wins, that's an
9 wins, 10
incredible
wins. That's
job.
I agree, absolutely. I mean, given that to describe the first 2/3 of the season as a bin fire would be
Yeah,
possibly too
yeah,
the fact that they've kept going, and those guys have been there the whole season,
yeah,
the whole season.
yeah, yeah,
Whelan and Barnes and Fraser, Malcolm, and Toto.
yeah.
Yeah, they get credit for that because they could, you can easily,
You can easily pack it in, can't
yeah,
you? Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. Right, happy days. Let's call an end to this, and we'll be back. I think I'm in Manchester next week, so it'll probably be Monday again next week.
Well, it
But
might be, depends how viral you go.
well, I don't think so. But yeah, I forgot about that now. I put it out of my mind. Whatever I said an hour ago, I've forgotten.
It's gone.
Forgotten it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Right, so we'll be back next week again to hopefully not have to talk about ranty stuff at the beginning of the show again and just talk about basketball. But have a good week, everybody. Don't forget all the midweek games, Dave.
Oh,
We'll see you again
I'm
next.
watching the midweek games in Bratislava. All
Are
right,
you?
juggle the rest.
You're skipping on Bristol. Must have 4 home games this week, surely. I thought what they
I
got
may
that.
watch and fast forward. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, Mrs. Walsh, but
yeah,
it's getting hard.
yeah. So we'll be back next week somehow to go through it all again. But for now, goodbye.